here's part 2 of constructing your alebrije. So I have my design here, which I have turned into an armature, which means I've built this out of foil, paper, tape, cardboard, and wire. Now, what I need to do to make this nice and strong is I'm going to be wrapping clay all around the body. Now this can be tricky. This whole project is a bit tricky, but I know you can do it. So what we're gonna do is we're going to be using modeling clay, air dry clay, and we are going to be rolling out a sheet of it, kind of like a pancake. And we're going to be rolling it out and then wrapping it around our design. So we're gonna start by taking some modeling clay, and we're going to smoosh it with our hands first and into kind of a pancake shape. See, it's getting thinner. Now I could just smoosh it by hand, or I could use a rolling pin. And when I'm rolling it, I am just trying to make it an even thickness all around. And this is going to be almost like a coat that I put on top of my design. Imagine that it's like a clothing for your creature. Okay, so now I have some clay, and I can actually just rip this, and I'm going to start to lay it across my creature and start to wrap it around the form. See how I'm wrapping it around this leg? My goal is I want to completely cover my design with the clay. See, I'm wrapping it. Look at that. Now that leg is pretty much wrapped. And then I'm going to take another piece and wrap this leg. So I'm using the clay, wrapping it around until my sculpture is covered with clay. Okay, so I've got 2 legs. I'm also going to wrap the wings. And where I join 2 pieces together, I want to kind of smooth it out so that it's not, so that I don't have any marks on my clay. Okay, so here, flipping it over, adding some more clay here. And now I need to make some more clay. Okay, once you've covered your alebrije with a thin layer of clay everywhere, and this is a little bit bigger than you should be working. I recommend working a bit smaller than this. Once you have a bit of clay everywhere, your job is to smooth it out. So wherever your clay is connected, you want to join it together in a nice way. The best way to do this is just with your fingers, and we're trying to get rid of any cracks or any lines that we see. So I'm just using my fingers to kind of smooth it out and make sure the clay is joined together nicely. And I'm going to do this throughout the whole piece. So very, very gently kind of going through and smoothing out all the parts where the clay connected together. And if I'm missing any spots, I can kind of spread the clay around to cover it, or I can add a little bit more clay to make sure each of those spots is covered. We don't want to see any paper or any foil. We want to just see clay that's nice and smooth. Okay, so sometimes I work sort of one side at a time. You'll notice as you're building that sometimes you can't get as detailed as your original design, and that's totally okay. This is really challenging, and it's a lot of trial and error. So don't worry if your creature isn't exactly how you drew it. Mine isn't at all, and it's still going to be really cool. Okay, so I've done that side pretty well, pretty smooth. I'm going to start to flip it over. You can see I have a lot of joins in there. If it's starting to dry out a little bit, you can get a little bit of water on your finger, just a tiny bit, to help you smooth out cracks. But really, just using dry hands is the best. So we want to cover up these spots, smooth it out. Okay, so once you smooth out all of the clay as best as you can, you should think about how it needs to dry. What position is your alebrije in? I want mine to be kind of sitting down, but sort of upright. It's okay if your alebrije is just laying down. I'm going to try to let mine dry in a way where it's sort of sitting up. So that means you've got to position it how you want it and then leave it that way to dry. The clay will take at least about 2 days to dry fully. And once it's dry, it's very hard and very sturdy, and it can't be moved once it's dry. So we want to position it how we want it to be able to dry nicely. And that is looking pretty good. So this is what it looks like from the side, from the front. I think I need to smooth this out a little bit more. Once these are totally dry, we will be painting them with acrylic paint and adding designs with paint pens to make super cool Alebrije inspired designs. So here's my design. Here's my animal. And when you're doing any other details like spikes and things like that, sometimes you can do that with the clay itself. So you can kind of pinch the clay and add little details like horns or spikes. So I'm kind of pinching the clay to make some spikes on the back. Pinch, 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 like that. So some designs you can do just with the clay itself, and some designs need to be done in the armature part. So like these horns, maybe I'll try to add a little bit to the horn so it has 2 spikes instead of 1. Things like this are a little bit fragile, so they might break So just be aware of that if you're going for these more fragile kind of things. And then, okay. Just make sure that every single part of your foil and paper is covered with clay, and try to make your clay as smooth as possible before letting it dry. This needs a little bit more clay support, so I'm adding that there. Okay. There we go.